So I ranked the top 25 best Jack and Daxter players of all time back in 2021. Let me explain. So back in 2021, I essentially made a list, which is what you're looking at right now. This is in the Jack and Daxter Discord. I decided to make a top 25 Jack runners of all time advent calendar of sorts. So basically starting on December 1st, I would reveal number 25, and then going all the way down to Christmas Day on the 25th, I would reveal number 1. So each day, the Jack community got to see a new runner in my list, and this was allowed to be posted in the Jack Discord. This was pretty much 90% put together by myself because I was there, to witness most of this, and I was the one who wanted to do it. But I did get a little bit of, is this okay, kind of affirmation from a couple of other runners as well. So let's go through it right now. I'm basically just going to be nerding out about this for a while, and I'll show you my list and maybe talk a bit about what's changed in the last 3 years. Have people kind of kept up their ranking? Are people stopped running ever since? Is there anyone new that should be added? So on and so forth. Each day until Christmas, I'll be revealing a runner from 25 to 1. So I basically based it on 3 things. So there was like results, longevity, and category spread. Results are based on strength of your times and records when they were set at a certain point in time. That should always be noted. Amount of records / good time set throughout time. In regards to world records, strength of optimization contained within the run. So in longevity, we have your activity with speedrunning Jack throughout time. How long you've done it, but also how much you've done it. Small bonus to newer players for setting great times quickly. For retired players, how long you played. Category split is based on how many different Jack categories you played, how many different Jack games you played, just like on the whole, like you can be a good Jack 1 player, but you can be good at every category, but it's a little bit different if you're good at one Jack 1 category and one Jack 2 category, like kind of on a different scale. And then proof of your ability to say great times in multiple games. So let's start with number 25. This is Six Rock. Six Rock is a very long-time runner of the Jack series. He's been running since 2015. His primary game is Jack 1. It's always been Jack 1. He's dabbled a little bit in Jack 3. He was top 10 at some point, which you can see with his 45-10 back in 2020. But for the most part, Six Rock has just been an all-around great player who has achieved times in multiple different categories. He's always been very good in no LTS, being top 10 in 2017 and 2019. But his main shine of where he kind of got everything, working for him, I would say, as a runner was with low eco. Low eco is a category where you collect the least amount of eco in Jack 1, and he's a huge pioneer in this category. And he found a lot of the tricks and optimizations, and he set many records in the category. So, Six Rock at 25. Do I think he still deserves top 25? I think so, personally. He stuck around in the Jack community for a long time, and he's still a great player. So, in some sense, I think so. I don't think he would be much higher. I think he would still hover around the bottom, but I think so. By any means, this is a very subjective list, of course. Some people think results are way more valued. Some people don't care about longevity at all. And some people think as long as you're good at one Jack game, you've earned your spot, in a sense. So this was very subjective for me. This was just like a subjective way for me to rank these people. Yeah, hopefully nobody takes any offense to it. At the time when I made this was actually seen as a pretty like people liked it, and people didn't mind people being rated like objectively in that sense. It just brought more. It was just supposed to be like a holiday season kind of like. We're spreading love towards our community members and showing appreciation to everyone who's grinded and so on and so forth. Next up in 24th is 7. You can also read these little... I wrote a small paragraph. You can pause the video and read these if you may. 24th belongs to 7. Now, 7 is pretty much a Jack X only main, and at the time of making this list, he was one of the most dominant Jack X players. He had set a record all the way back in 2016 in any percent, and he was still very, very good at the game. Going into 2021, when I wrote the list, he was good at all cups. He was good at any percent. Again, you can see he's setting records like years apart. So he's been around for a long time, and he's just always been good at racing games. So I forget the game that he's playing now, but he's playing a different racing game. I think it might be a Forza game, but yeah, he's doing very well in that currently as well. I don't think 7 has played Jack X much since 2021, so I don't know if he would still belong on the list, but at the time, 7 was definitely a pick for the list. Another thing as well is there was another player called Wymac who was a little bit of a newer player, but was starting to really clash with 7. And honestly, this spot was very contested between Wymac and 7, and Wymac was a notable number 26 for me after the list was over. Number 23 belongs to Sikinar, and Sikinar was a Jack 2 runner who ran at GDQ, got a very strong time at GDQ, and also set many any percent records right around when the game was about to drop below the 1 hour mark. The reason Sikinar isn't higher is just the longevity. Sikinar never played for that long, which kind of sucks because Sikinar was a great player and just was a great person to be around, and you know, just a good vibe in the community. So Sikinar was very consistent as well. Jack 2 is notorious for being like very crash heavy, and it's kind of tough to be consistent. So just setting in a bunch of results in a short amount of time is much respect to Siki. And Siki's gone on to play tons of other games in the future. Check out their speedrun.com. I'm pretty sure there's like numerous different games that are not even close to Jack 2. But yeah, Sikinar, overall great speedrunner, great Jack 2 runner, deserves to be on here. Not sure if that's still be on here, but because Siki is inactive, and as newer players come in, inactive players fall off a little bit. But at the time, Siki definitely deserved to be on the list. Number 22 is Yankee. Yankee's in a similar situation as Sikinar, where Yankee was a prime Jack 3 runner in 2015. He started running in 2014. Kind of around the middle of 2014, he started running. He would quickly climb into the top 5 with Blost and Qatar and myself and Raccoon. Once Raccoon and I got 38 minute times in Jack 3 any percent, Yankee would actually climb into the 4th place spot and get 40-36. After he got 40-36, he was kind of torn on whether or not he was going to kind of keep pushing his time down, or if he was going to try to tackle Temple Skip, which was this new trick that nobody had been doing in runs. And if you want to know more about that, I have a video on my main channel, Era 4, Breaking Through, in my Conquering Jack 3 series. Covers Yankee's story about that, and it's actually very exciting. But Temple Skip was this new skip nobody had done before, so in that sense, Yankee is a huge boundary breaker and a big daredevil. He's like the daredevil of Jack 3, pretty much. This was this crazy skip that nobody really was willing to do. Admittedly, looking back, I think Yankee's rated a little bit low, actually. I think his impact was very felt on the game, and I think he was the best player in the summer of, like, at least for a few months in 2015. It was close between me, Bob, and Yankee, but ultimately I think he was just taking the most risks. He was the most innovative, and he had the most drive, honestly. Bob and I were great players, but I feel like in some sense, looking back, Yankee was just like hungry and just really in it. In a sense. Much respect to Yankee. The only reason he's this low is because his career was fairly short. This 25-10, I believe, is actually his last record that he ever set, which is all the way back in 2015. That's almost 9. That is 9 years ago now. Damn. So yeah, I would still put Yankee in top 25. A huge innovator for Jack 3, and decided to put Temple Skip into the run. Number 21 is Bobby Kaze. Look at all these trifectos. This is the man, the myth, the legend. Now, Bobby was a bit of a controversial pick at the time. I thought Bobby was a great pick because he's actually quite good at all 3 Jack games. He was good at Jack 1. He was one of the first people he was able to get a record with Lava Tube Skip back when that was first a thing, and he was also able to get 4th place with Fire Canyon Skip in Jack 1, and just being able to complete a run with Fire Canyon Skip back then was a tall ask. It was a tough order. It was a tall order, a tough task. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, looking back, Bobby never really had any hard competitors, nor did he really try to upkeep his times too much. He was just very inspired by new routes. So when new routes would come on, he would be very into these new routes and just dive straight into them and try and grind his time down really hard once there was new time save on the table. In some respect, I definitely don't think he should have been on the top 25 back then, and I don't think he should be now, but it's because Bobby is a very, very influential glitch hunter in our Jack series. He's probably in top 5, even top 3 best Jack glitch hunters we have. He's one of our greatest minds in the community. So it's really hard to like look at him and go like, yeah, he's obviously Bobby's a great player. He's a great player. He's a great glitch hunter. I doesn't really run much anymore, but also one thing to mention about Bobby is he's glitch hunted many other games. He's glitch hunted like God of War games and like Legacy of Kain and just like all these other games that I have no clue about, but he's done a ton for glitch hunting. Any game he touches, he just loves to break them, and he does it very well too. Bobby, I think, was a bit of a controversial pick back then. Looking back, I think there was other, like in hindsight, there was other players I could have put in instead, but I think Bobby still does deserve close to a top 25 at the very least. His glitch hunt, if we took glitch hunting into account, he's definitely on here. Entering the top 20, we have Noki Doki. You might know Noki Doki from speedrunning Super Mario Sunshine. He's actually very influential in speedrunning and glitch hunting and making tools for that game. But little do people know, Noki Doki is pretty much the best Daxter player of all time, more or less. Anyway, still plays a lot today, and I think Noki Doki could actually very well be more than top 20 today, actually, just because he's upkept his records and has just continued to be very dominant. Just an all-out force in Daxter, and has continued to do so, I would say. I don't know much about Daxter, but if you look at the amount of records he has set in Daxter, it's very obvious. Still active today, still killing it, and much deserved, for sure. At number 19, we have Raccoon. Now, Raccoon is one of my best buds, of course. 19, I think, is a fair placement for Raccoon. His career was a little bit longer than Yankee, but not too much longer, I think. It was actually roughly about the same. But I think the reason I put Raccoon above Yankee was just because I was more impressed with the strength of the records that he set at the time, at the very least. Actually, he did play longer than... Yeah, he played in 2016, which is a couple more points there. So Raccoon was a world record holder for Jak 3 any percent in 2014. He was my main rival in 2014. He was pretty much the toughest competition I ever had at the time playing the game. And I think he very much deserves the spot on this list. He was also a very solid Jak 2 player. Like, he didn't get any crazy good times, but you can see in 2016, he was 6th, despite it never being his main game. So much respect there. And he got 2nd in No Oob in 2016, which is a very strong time. I forgot about that. I'm glad I wrote this down. But yeah, he had about 6 or 7 80% records in his career. Very much deserves to be on there. I mean, he was a pioneer of the jetboard at the time, for sure. Yeah, shouts to Raccoon. One of the greatest. Number 18, we have Vaser. A person some people argued I should put higher, and I can totally see why. Vaser has results, very much so. So Vaser today is known for being one of the main devs of OpenGoal, the PC port of Jak and Daxter, but he's kind of the person who took over after TomJack retired. TomJack was kind of this big force in 2014. Well, you'll see later down the list. TomJack was like just this menace tearing through Jak 2. He was like basically the best player in 2014 and also 2013 too. He was the best for 2 years, but eventually TomJack would stop playing, and Vaser was there to take his place. I still think he deserves top 25. Vaser is a huge influence on Jak 2 speedrunning today. He found loads of strats, especially he was one of the main people pioneering all missions. Very underplayed category at the time. Huge respect to Vaser. I think he definitely deserves a spot even today. He also helped us with some small strategy changes in Jak 3. He never really ran Jak 3, but he found a couple strats. So, always helpful. 17, we have Bob, Hillary Puff. This is the first big change in the rankings, in my opinion, if we were to move forward to 2024. I would argue that Bob is close, if not a top 10 player. Bob, I think he is a top 10 player. Bob started playing in 2015, was a formidable foe in Jak 3 any percent, in hero mode, in No Oob back in the day. And as we've come to know, he got the world record back in No Oob in 2023 and went on to be a top 10 player in Jak 1 at the most competitive point in the game's history for that category. And he was also the trifecta world record holder at one point. I don't think I knew about that because I don't know if there's a video of it at the time. Bob was rated too low back here, and I think he should be rated higher as well. Bob just had results and the longevity too. The thing is, he was inactive when I made this list, but he came back right around the time I made this list. Like, he would come back the next year-ish. He would slowly build his resume back up, basically. I think Bob definitely deserves top 10. But also, it should be noted that Bob was like... It's really hard between him and Yankee, but he definitely was the best player. He was probably for a full month, I would say, the best Jak 3 player as well. I would say it was like maybe Yankee in June and then Bob in July, because that's when he would get his 29:33 retimed. I missed the typo there. But I mean, the competition was just so fierce in the middle of 2015, and Bob was just like a driving force at keeping that up. And his latest achievements, I mean, they speak for themselves. And also, he's just a great guy overall. He's just an amazing player, and he knows how to practice, and he just knows how to adapt. And I think if he played Jack 2 even today, he could be very good, and there'd be an argument for even like a top 8, I would say. But I would say Bob today in 2024, top 10 player of all time, for sure. All right, Tom Jack. Tom Jack. What is there to say about Tom Jack that I didn't say before? If we halt the timeline in 2014, I would say Tom Jack is the best Jack player ever, maybe. It's arguable. It's tough. Tom Jack literally dominated Jack 2 for so long. He set like 12 records in a row or something like that. Back when I had the record in Jack 2, this 129 was the first to take me down, and he would take it down by so much more. It would go all the way down to this 108 with only 1 or 2 records that were interrupted, and it was by me. And he would quickly take the record back whenever I would take it back from him. So he was just so dominant. This Jack 3 time at the bottom was with a new route. He actually beat the record by 6 minutes, which is also in the, I believe, in Era 3 in my Conquering Jack 3 series. And this was just a funny like coincidence. This wasn't necessarily like a good run. I would beat it by 4 minutes myself once it happened, but like just the idea that he beat the record by this much with like finding a new route goes to show how great of a glitch hunter Tom Jack is. I mean, for his time, he was a great mind of the game too, and a great player. I think for the game's early day, he was the best runner and glitch hunter combined. Like he was the best of both worlds for the early days of Jack speedrunning. And I'm not gonna lie, Tom Jack is in the top contention for like runners I wish that would come back. Like I really wish that Jack, I mean, we have open goal now for Jack 2, and I was hoping Tom Jack would actually like maybe try it out, try some mods, maybe play again. But I think he's moved on. But I do think he appreciates everything that's been done for the series, and you know, I owe everything to Tom Jack. He played a little bit at Jack 1, but he was never really very good at Jack 1. He also wasn't super great at Jack 3. He was better at Jack 3 than Jack 1. But I mean, it was clear his game was Jack 2, very much so. At number 15, we have a person that's very different from a lot of the other people we've seen. This is like the first proper all-arounder. This is Saxman. Saxman was just he played so much when he was still active. He started in the mid-2014, and he stopped in 2016, early 2017-ish. He just played everything, like literally everything. He'd play Jack 1 hundo, Jack 2 hundo, Jack 3 hundo. Now, people didn't play Jack 2 or 3 hundo at the time, but he would try his hand at the categories just to run everything. He would do all missions for those 2 games. He would do like Orbless, any percent Jack 1. He literally played everything, and he was good at everything too. There were a couple people like him that would play a lot of different categories, like Reese and Andy Gaming would also play a lot of different stuff, but no one was really up to par like the way Saxman was. Saxman's main category, though, he did have a main category where he was dominant, and I would say it's Jack 1 100%, where he would trade records back and forth between himself and Piggleberry, and eventually Outrageous Josh would come in too. And Saxman, I mean, definitely held his own. He was a great player for the time, and he did have one Jack 1 record at the time where he used, I believe, Gondola Skip for the first time, this one in the middle here. I think he came back for like a solid month in 2022 or something. I forget. He just started streaming or something. I just remember a vague memory of someone saying like, dude, Saxman is live. But I don't think it's stuck for long. And if it wasn't obvious, I think today he's playing the sax. So good on Saxman. Number 14, arguably the best Jack 1 player in the game's early history. I mean, not arguably, he just is. It's Bill Braid. Bill Braid is the best Jack 1 player in the game's early history. He said, I believe it's somewhere about 25 world records in a row. It is not a joke how dominant this guy was. To put it into perspective, the early history of the game was largely trading records between Zeppelins, Preer, and Bonesaw. Those were like the 3 people lowering the record incrementally, but none of them were really like hardcore practice grinders. They were like not really figuring out the spacing to the level of Bill Braid. So when Bill showed up, he would overtake Preer and Bonesaw very quickly, and he did not live up his throne. His first record was in 2013, and he would keep lowering it all the way down like 10 minutes. And this was without too many crazy strategy changes. I mean, there were a couple minutes found with some cutscene skips, Red Sage, Blue Sage, and stuff like that, but his movement was just on another world. And I also believe he was the first to break the 2-hour barrier in Jack 1 100% as well. I feel like at the time he didn't really get enough points for having like a good category spread. Because the thing is, Bill was actually decent at Jack 3 any percent. I think he was top 10 at some point. You know, no crazy world record level or anything like that, but he could play Jack 3 and he could hold his own in races, and he would definitely not get like last or anything like that. But I mean, I wish I just had a sheet open to show how much Bill really did. I mean, these 5 records is just like, you know, a cream of the crop. The guy has so many records in Jack 1, and he just set them all in like 2013, 2014, and 2015. He played for only a year and a half, and he set like over 50 records. It's just like unreal. And the guy was a decent glitch hunter too. I believe he found Red Sage at the time, Red Sage cutscene skip. So hats off to Bill. He's still around, and he has tried to come back to Jack 1, but I do think he realizes how dominant he was, and he definitely, I think he feels that it's one of those things where it's like, I'm never going to replicate that run ever again. Once you've been at the top ones, it's tough to kind of come back and tell yourself, I'm going to get back to number 1 again. It's tough, right? And I think Bill probably struggles with that when he wants to come back to playing Jack. I think he might enjoy it a little bit, but it's just there's a bit of added pressure onto it. These days he plays a lot of Tekken, I know that much. Number 13 is Chim Force. I love that picture of him, by the way. Trifecto in the chat. Chim is just an all-arounder, a great player. He's basically just like one notch better than Sax in every way, in a bit more of a modern sense. And he's played it for a bit longer, too. His best game was Jack 1. He was good at no LTS. That third place time in 2018, I mean, if you're top 3 in no LTS, you're a force to be reckoned with. That is probably like the most competitive category in all of Jack, except for like maybe hero mode in Jack 3. No LTS is like, that's like the category. That's like beat Jak and Daxter as quickly as you can, no major skips. And that says a lot. He was also the first person to break the 2-hour barrier in Trifecta, so he was good at all 3 Jack games all at once. He was good at Jack 3 no Oob as well. He was closing in on record at one point in Jack 3 no Oob. He was actually very good. And he was good at multiple Jack 1 categories outside of that. Chim just had a resume for being good at every Jack game. He had good results, and he played for a relatively like good amount of time as well. Post this, you know, in 2024, looking at it, Chim definitely deserves to still be on here. I don't think anybody past 13 doesn't deserve to be on here, really. But I think Chim would not drop too much, to be honest. He's played a little bit of Jack 3 since, and his results have just continued to be good. So, Chim, great player. And I also want to say one thing as well. Chim played during the era where we saw the most dominant Jack 1 player ever play the game. So he was holding his own. At number 12, we have Wotan. Now, Wotan's one of the best Jack 3 players to ever play the game. His main category is Jack 3 Hero Mode. Arguably the best Jack 3 Hero Mode player ever. He's just a guy that never gives up playing that category. No matter what gets discovered, he's just on that category. He's got thousands and thousands of attempts in the category, and he deserves to be on this list and deserves to be this high. He's continued to play Jack 3, and he's continued to prove himself. He's very much still active in the game. I mean, he streamed he streamed multiple times this month, and I think he probably should even be top 10 after this. The only reason there's an argument to not put him higher is just Wotan is not one to really play any of the other Jack games. I think he has a high standard ever since he started playing Jack 3. I think he enjoys the other Jack games, but there's just like a level of commitment he feels like he needs to get to the same level where he's at in Jack 3 Hero Mode. He has actually dabbled in Jack 2 and Jack X, but always comes back to Jack 3. And he's good at 100% as well, and 80%. So he's got variety, and he's played for a long time too. Watching him play is amazing. I will say that. He's just super skilled. Number 11, we have Mike. Mike Game Pro. Mike is one of the best Jack 1 players as well for his era. He was pretty much the second best Jack player right around when, again, I'm not going to spoil who, but you probably know who. When the most dominant Jack 1 player was playing at the time, Mike would literally, the definition of hold his own. He was trying his absolute best to penetrate through the barriers of being first place many, many times. And it would not always go the way he wanted to because the number 1 player was so dominant and was just playing every day. It just wasn't fair in some sense. But that should not be discredited because Mike is an amazing player. He's also a very, very good routing mind for the game. I believe he found a route change in no LTS in like 2019 or 2021, somewhere in that range. That just saved like 30 seconds. That he just figured out that getting more cells in Spider Cave is just way more worth it and saved like 30 seconds, which was like unreal that we have a different cell order in like all these years of looking at the game. But his main category is Jack 1 100%, and he's He set records in there before, and yeah, super, super great player. Has done a lot for the game. Really only drawback is just, yeah, #1 player was very dominant, which made his results, they look worse than they actually are. They are honestly amazing. Today, Mike definitely will drop down the list a lot. He's pretty much not played since. He would still make top 20, I think, but I mean, for the time, he played a ton, and he was a great player. All right, entering the top 10, we have Jazzberry. Now, Jazz is just an old-timer. Jazz started in May of 2014, and he still plays today every now and then when he gets the itch. I would still put semi-active. He's not playing right now, but like he's kind of the guy where like you never know when he's going to play. No matter the case, Jazz has been there since the start, and he has played any percent for Jack 1 for so long. It is the category he's held dearly. It doesn't matter what skips get found. He has played Jack 3 or Jack 1 any percent at all times. His first record was back in 2015 when him and Headstrong were kind of the new up-and-comers to try and dethrone Bill. And then Jazz was also competing with your #1 player in Jack 1. I'm not going to spoil who, but you already know. These records were in a heated battle between the #1 player at the time, and Jazz was able to hold his own. This was arguably like his best year in 2018 when he was just a fierce competitor at the time. And even going into 2019, I remember the 16-27. People thought this time was so unbeatable at the time. And it did seem like an insurmountable record. I can't believe Jazz had that kind of grind in him all those years later after first picking up the game. Once Fire Canyon Skip got found, I mean, Jazz was a formidable force, seriously. Like, he deserves to be top 10 just for what he's done for Jack 1, period. I mean, he's an amazing player. One thing, though, Jazz has, like, never played Jack 2 or Jack 3 or Jack X or anything like that. I mean, he's, like, maybe given it a go randomly, but he's never done any runs. He also just is a little bit sparse with the categories he plays in Jack 1s. He likes the shorter stuff. He likes the any percent, your, like, all flies. I think he's probably played all orbs as well, no FCS. He's not really a 100% guy, so he likes that shorter stuff, and that's to be respected. I mean, it doesn't pull his ranking down or anything like that. Like, his skill is clearly there, and he's shown it for many years. So, Jazz still deserves to be extremely highly rated. Definitely still in the top 15, top 12, I think, to be honest. #9, we have Ouija Shi. Ouija is... Oh, man, where do I start with Ouija? So Ouija was he kind of came into playing Jack. He played, yeah, you can see he started in March 2015. Like spring 2015, we saw a slew of new players. There's like 5 new players in like spring 2015 that would all come in playing various Jack games. And Ouija started with Jack 1, and he would actually set this 5850, which was a world record tie with Headstrong at the time. So Ouija already proved himself as a very strong Jack 1 player already back in 2015. I don't really know I got into him, but the next year he would just pick up Jack 2 and just... I remember this 102 standing for quite a while. At the very least, a solid half year. Like, this was the record for a good while. And Jack 2 would just kind of become his main game for a long time. He would set another record when Fire Canyon Skip came out with 25-22. But you can see these Jack 2 records are kind of where he's at. In 2016, he would have the Jack 2 record. And then he was inactive for a long time. And then he would come back in 2021 and play Jack 2 again, competing with another player that's further down the list to try to hold his own and like compete for the record. And he was able to do that. And he was able to get the record many times. Also getting a second place here with a 54. I think this was the most recent time that he got this like right as the list dropped. So this was like a big deal, even though it wasn't a first place time. Yeah, Ouija has good spread. He was also pretty good at Jack 3. He wasn't like amazing at Jack 3, but I think he was top 5 in any percent with like some new route stuff happening, but still very respectable, and had the world record in trifecta, which proves your skill at all 3. Mad respect, Ouija, and I hope he plays again sometime. He also got mad kendama skills. If you like kendama, you should check out his YouTube channel. He posts some cool shorts. All right, this one's changed. I can't believe I'm looking at this list and just seeing like 2nd and 3rd and 4th and just being like, yeah, that's acceptable. Aslov is, for the time, he did deserve to be 8th, but he's arguably #1 right now. Aslov has proven himself to just be good at whatever he wants to do. So in 2021, he was kind of on a spree to sort of slowly dethrone Josh. But yeah, so Josh was like a very, very formidable force, which, you know, Mike and Jazz were trying to compete with for a long time. And Aslov in 2021 was just on a spree, like super on a tear. Like all these times were set in 2021. The reason he was only 8th was because he just started playing. I made this list. I mean, he'd been playing for a year and a half, and he's already a top 10 player. That's like crazy. Like his longevity is like not even remotely in consideration here, but his results were just so stunning. So Josh kind of stopped playing in 2021, and Aslov was kind of the next guy in line to like kind of take his place. Another reason I didn't put Aslov higher at the time was because while he was taking the records from Josh, which was very impressive, Josh was not there to fight back like he used to. Mike was honestly a player equal to Aslov's level at the time. It's just that Josh was so dominant that like he wouldn't let anything slide. If Josh lost the record, he would just take it right back. But today, today Aslov has every single record in Jack 1, as far as I know, still to this day. I think he's had that for like over a year now. He has Jack 2 any percent record, and he's second place in Jack 3 any percent as well. And he's good at no oob in Jack 3. He's good at hero mode. He's good at all missions. He's good at Jack 2 any percent. There is nothing this guy is not good at. Like, the fact that he's at all 3 any percents at some point, which I don't think has ever been done, speaks volumes. Aslov is currently, in my opinion, the greatest of all time. He's not actually played very much in the last half year. His career is only, 3.5 years young, but I think he's just the best. And I don't think it's a hot take at all to agree with that whatsoever. At the time, though, definitely 8th. He hadn't been playing for long enough to like really prove that he could still be in the game. Although at the time there was no doubt he was going to be that. But it was difficult to rate him higher than 8th. Number 7 is Piggleberry. Piggle is another player that's played for a long time. He started in March 2015, just like Ouija. And just like I said, there was like just a slew of new runners coming in and around mid-early in spring 2015. And Piggle started out by competing with mostly Saxman for the Jack 1 Hundo record. And he would lower it multiple times. He's always been a Jack 1 100% lover. It's something he's always been very good at. And honestly, he was good at Jack 1 for like a long time, and he was setting great times in every category. And then in 2017, I remember being out of the scene for a while, came back to look at the leaderboards. The guy just dropped this 101 in Jack 2. And this is one of the most mysterious records to me because it happened so fast, at least in my mind. We knew Piggle was just a great Jack 1 player, but like nobody would like saw him being this good at Jack 2. One of the most amazing things was watching him fight Crew. I remember how quick and precise he was on like killing all the blobs, and he also had all missions for Jack 2. Like he was good at Jack 1 and good at Jack 2. He never really played Jack 3 very much, and at the time he had just been playing Jack 100%, so his status is active, but he has not played since, as far as I know. Maybe a bit in 2022, but I don't think he's played much in the last 2 years. And that's totally fair. Piggle does not really need to show anything for himself anymore. He's an amazing player. He's great. Definitely, probably still top 10, if I'm being honest. All right, Stellar. Stellar was ranked 6th at the time, but in my opinion would definitely make a easy call for a top 5 player now. So at the time, Stellar was just a very predominant Jack 1 player, and those are seen by his results. He was able to get the first sub 16 with Fire Canyon Skip, which is just mind-blowing. And he still has the record in Jack 1 90%, which is one of the most prestigious records you could ever hold. But these results are just like, they're nothing compared to what he has now. He's been extremely like dominant in Jack 3 no oob as of late. Granted, there has been a couple route changes, but it's not like those are easy records because a lot of the new stuff that's been found is difficult to pull off. And yeah, he's a great Jack 3 player. He's also competed with me in Jack 3 all missions. And it shows that he's just an all-around great player. He's not played as much Jack 2, but he has a great any percent time still in Jack 2. I forget if it was top 5 at the time. It probably was. Today in 2024, Stellar still plays fairly often, still active, and I would say easy top 5, arguably top 3 player. I think Stellar's amazing, honestly. Going forward, I can see him setting more records. Although he does take a couple more breaks now, I think he will continue to play for a while, and we know he'll get great times. Top 5, we got Lucas. So Septurna, or Lucas as we all like to call him, was pretty much the best Jack 2 player for about 2 years, even 3 maybe. He just had so many records in every single category. He was like the first to really sweep the game in a long time. It's funny because I remember he was like, him starting out, he didn't know what Jack game to start out with. And his English wasn't very good, and he was kind of like awkward, like talking to me about like hey, what should I do for this strat? And like, which Jack game should I pick up? Oh, I want to play Jack 1. I want to play Jack 3. I want to play all these games. Kind of like finding his footing in the scene. But eventually he just like boiled down on like, I want to play Jack 2 and I want to get good at it. And he did. It was honestly amazing to watch his growth. When he finally toppled Headstrong in the category, it was an amazing sight to see. Another thing as well is Lucas, he's kind of a mysterious player today because while there are other great Jack 2 players, it kind of feels like nobody truly beat Lucas. It just feels like he beat himself. He feels like he stopped by himself in a sense. Like when Lucas grinded, it didn't seem like anybody could actually beat him. No slouch to Ouija or anything like that, but it seemed like Lucas was just so strong for his time, which is why he's ranked so high. The strength of his records is unlike any of the other players on this list, I feel like. Like seriously, like he was a player where if you wanted to beat him, you needed to do it with a new strat or you needed to really hardcore optimize your run because this guy was good. He was decent at Jack 3 as well with no oob, and he also had a respectable Jack 1 time as well. But, I mean, Lucas was, at least at the time of making this video, or at the time of making this list, he was the greatest Jack 2 player at the time. Even better than Tom Jack was back in the day, because the game was harder at the time. The only problem is Lucas has not played much lately. He's just not kept up his streak and hasn't really played much, which sucks, because he's a great player and also a great guy. But he still hangs around the community, and no one's forcing him to play. Lucas definitely deserved the top 5. All right, next one is going to be a bit awkward. Number 4 is me. I put myself at number 4. So I am the oldest active player of Jack, period, and thus I maxed out in the longevity because pretty much you can't beat anybody like me for playing as long as I did. My first world record in Jack 3 was world record by default, actually, because nobody actually had an 80% run of the game at the time. But if we take a look at some of these notable achievements at the time, I was the first to get 16 in hero mode. I ranked this at the highest point because I'm notoriously not a hero mode player. I play the longer stuff typically. I used to do the 80% runs when they were longer. I used to do no oob, which was a little bit longer. I used to play all missions a lot and a bit 100% as well. But I'm known for all missions, like I would say mostly. So when I came back and I competed with Wotan and one of the players in the top 3, I'll try not to spoil, and I managed to come out on top, it felt like a very big achievement. It proved that I could still do it, and I argued it was my prime year, which is funny to look at because I would argue that I think my prime year was 2022 now. 2022, I managed to sweep the game at the tail end of the year, or I think it was maybe the start of 2023, yeah. I managed to sweep the game. Not something I'd done since 2014, and also the game was way less optimized, and there was no oob at the time. Besides that, I mean, I had a couple of Jack 2 records back in the day. I competed with Tom Jack when he was very dominant, so I held my own against him. And I played a little bit of Seaport Strip. I had a record in that. Jack X, kind of small points here and there. I'm okay at Jack 1, but we all know Jack 3 is my main game, and I still play today, I think. Like, I mean, I last played Jack 3 in the summer of 2023, so that's 7 months ago, which doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was. And I would still call myself semi-active. I'm not retired by any means. But yeah, I think the fact that I've been able to keep up for all these years is impressive enough. And I think I still deserve to be in top 5. Just the fact that I continue to play after this. And also, I have a 1558 in hero mode, which has been the record for almost a year now. I think it has been the record for a year now, which is pretty much my strongest speedrun of all time, I think. And it says a lot about my my love for Jack 3. It's the fact that I can still do it, I guess. So, I was trying not to spoil. We got Goofy at number 3, and Goofy is very much, I mean, I think Goofy is the greatest of all time in Jack 3. It's just so, look at that resume, man. Goofy started a little bit later than me, so obviously he doesn't have the longevity as much as me, but that's like unfair to judge it as that. Goofy's results were just so immaculately insane for the time. The times he would set in hero mode and no oob for the time were like really huge milestones to beat. Hero mode, especially Wotan and I, were like, when Goofy grinds hero mode, it's fucking scary, man. The guy is so fast. He has the fastest early game I've ever seen. Like, he's so quick. And he's consistent too. He was able to snag a hoverless record in Jack 2 as well, with a really unique strategy in Mars Tomb called the Torch Proxy. Oh man, I don't know what to say about Goofy that hasn't already been said. It's just like, he's just such a fucking good player. And he was so good at like 13 years old. That's like how good he got. And the older he got more experience, and he would just become an unstoppable force. I mean, Goofy was the best Jak 3 player from 2016 until like 2020, I would say. For like 4 years, he was like the best player. I mean, granted, he didn't get much competition, but it's kind of a fear factor in a sense. I would say his times were just so good that no one wanted to compete with him almost. Like, you knew you were just fucked. Like, he was just going to take it right back. So, Goofy still deserves to be in the top 5 easily. He's not really played a whole lot since. He hasn't played much in 2023. He played a little bit, but not really to the same extent. He burns out very quickly now, which is like understandable. I do the same, to be honest. So, but I mean, his results in the past speak for themselves. Coming up at number 2 is Headstrong. Now, Headstrong is in the GOAT conversation for sure, even today. The fact of the matter is, Headstrong has the widest spread out of any Jak player. If you want to prioritize category spread and game spread, we're talking Headstrong. Headstrong is good at Jak 1. Headstrong is good at Jak 2. Headstrong is decent at Jak 3. Headstrong is decent at Jak X. Headstrong is good at Daxter, and Headstrong is good at TLF. That is all 6 Jak games, and she's above average in every single category. Starting back, Headstrong was a Jak 1 player, starting in August 2014. Headstrong was already good at like Paper Mario and like Kingdom Hearts before playing Jak and Daxter. Headstrong has broken the 1 hour barrier in Jak 1 and Jak 2. Mind you, was just relentless grinds on both of them, especially the Jak 2 one. I think is very, very remarkable. It's funny too, because Headstrong started out as a Jak 1 player, then took a bit of a break, and then just played Jak 2 casually. It must have been like a sub goal or something. And it was really funny how innocent she was with the whole like, oh, I don't really play games where there's guns in it, where you can shoot and stuff. She plays Jak 2 and thought it was a terrible casual game. And, well, maybe not terrible, but didn't like the game much casually. Then just starts speedrunning it and goes, this is a great speedrunning game. I like this. Just ends up becoming like the best player for a long time. Pretty much before Lucas, Headstrong was the player to beat. And even past Lucas, Headstrong was still able to keep up. In the most recent time, we've seen a bit of a rivalry between Headstrong and Aslov for the Jak 2 record. And Headstrong was able to hold her own, although Aslov did come out on top in the end. But again, like, the longevity is just immaculate. I think Headstrong's also had a record in, TLF hero mode. TLF any percent as well, I think. Also been top 3 in Daxter. And I think she was also top 3 in Jak 3 hero mode as well, which, like, to be fair, like, there was like Wotan and Goofy in second and first, and then there was like a huge gap. But still, good at everything, amazing results, especially in Jak 1, has tons of records in Jak 1, tons of records in Jak 2. Very impressive resume. I mean, Headstrong, if you want to talk the best overall Jak player, it's Headstrong. And I think she's arguably still in GOAT conversation. It's possible, depending on what you value. Like, in my opinion, it could be Aslov because of, like, today, because Aslov just has the most impressive records across the board. But, I mean, if you want the whole package, I think it is Headstrong in some capacity. Number 1 for 2021 is Outrageous Josh. Who would have thunk it? So Outrageous Josh, easily, the reason I ranked him this high was his resume. And his resume is just insane. I mean, he dominated Jak 1 for like 4 years. Basically since 2016, all the way up until like 2020 or 2021. That's like 4 or 5 years. He just absolutely annihilated Jak 1, like pretty much untouchable at the time. There was a couple people that gave him a run for his money, but he was basically a fortress trying to be penetrated by Jazz, Mike. You got Chim kind of like, you know, poke a needle in like, you know, in this ball, and he would always move the ball, and like, you know, Josh was just holding down the fort against all these players trying to take him down. And it wasn't malicious or anything like that, obviously, but people were trying to get a piece of the world record cake, and Josh wasn't having it. He swept the game 2 or 3 full times, and that is like 8 categories, by the way. That's like any percent, no FCS, no LTS, 100% orbless, no major skips, all orbs, all flies. I think that's 8, yeah. And he did that multiple times. Another thing that should be noted about Josh is I still think he's in the top 3 because he's managed to take records in Jak 3 all missions and Jak 300%, which aren't as prestigious of categories as, say, hero mode, but it still shows his versatility at Jack and Daxter. And also, he's good at Daxter, and he's good at Jack X as well. I think Headstrong ranks a little bit higher in the Jack X and Daxter factor, and definitely in Jack 2. I mean, Josh is decent at Jack 2, but the thing is, Josh is like insane at Jack 1. He's very good at Jack 3, and then he's like good at the rest, pretty much. Whereas with Headstrong, it's a bit of a stronger argument. So the only thing Josh ever had lacking for him as a whole Jack player is just having better Jack 2 results or Daxter results or anything like that. But at the time, I think Josh's resume was just way too strong. I don't think he's #1 anymore, but I do think he's probably top 3. I think in some sense, depending on what you value, it's either Headstrong or Aslov in 1 or 2, then Josh in 3, I would say. And then number 4 would probably be me again. And then 5, probably Stellar. You could put Stellar in 4 as well. It's just based on activity in the last couple of years. Like, I've played more than Goofy in the last 3 years, so I think naturally I'd be a bit higher. And Stellar's played a bit more in the last bit. But overall, this was a really fun thing to do, and I think a lot of people actually enjoyed it. It's really difficult to rank people objectively when it comes to this kind of thing. So don't take this like objectively or anything like that. It was just something that I wanted to do at the time and I wanted to have fun with. I'm going to scroll through this in case you want to like pause and read any of these. A little bit of backstory about, you know, all the runners and stuff like that. You can. I'm going to scroll through them very slowly, but as of now, this has just been like my ramble of the best Jack players, at least in 2021 when I wrote it. I wrote it in December 2021, so this was Christmas 2021. So it's basically been 3 years and 1 month since I wrote this, so it's been a while. And before I go and before we end this video, there are definitely some new entries that absolutely deserve to be on this list, and they're not even like 25th barely or whatever. I would say Scarletra, easily top 15, if not higher, and also Blord. Both are very, very good Jack 2 players, and Blord is just... like, Blord is a bit more of a recent player than Scarletra. Scarletra is very good at Jack 2 and X, so there's a bit more of a category spread there, while Blord is primarily a Jack 2 player and has achieved more impressive results overall, I think. Blord is looking for any percent right now, and once Blord achieves any percent, is looking to sweep the entire game. But I mean, both incredible players, and Scarletra has done so much for Jack X as well, so I think both of them deserve to be top 15 today. Another player that I think deserves an honorable mention on here, 2 players, is Zyphels and Bin. Both are just like pretty good players all around and set really good times in Jack 3. So I think they definitely deserve it. And a player that also deserves top 15 now is definitely Usual. Usual is... he only plays Jack 3 pretty much, but I mean, his results are just... He's set very few records so far, but the records he has set are so insane. The strats he does and like just the optimization of them all, it's a sight. It really is a sight. A couple more players, I think. There's a couple Jack 1 runners that could be on here. So here's the runner-up list. So it was a tie from Dex and Bonesaw at 26. Just to briefly talk about these. Dex, great runner as well. Just didn't have enough results to really show for anything. Bonesaw also just ran for like not too long. He had a couple records, but the game wasn't very optimized at the time, so he barely didn't make the cut. But he was still a good player for the time, very much so. Wymack was just too new to be on the list. An amazing Jack X player. Definitely would make the list today. Blue and Rhoda didn't have quite the results and only really played Jack 1. Boss definitely is going to make the list today because Boss is has amazing time trial records in Jack X as well. Smoker was a Jack 2 player who was very good. Nitroff played for Too Little. He played Jack 2. Unreal could actually arguably... He should have made the list, at least back in the day, because he's the guy who found the hover glitch, but also he was good at Jack 2, and he was good at Jack 3 as well. I feel like he maybe should have made the list. And then Yonda, Mickey are just good Jack 3 players. Didn't play for very long. Vortex, good Jack 1 player, and Preer, good Jack 1 player. If I'm forgetting anybody, I'm very sorry. There's too many to count at this point. But that's been my like 1 hour ramble of pretty much the best Jack players ever. If you stuck with it all the way, thank you. Who knows, maybe I'll do something like this again. But as of right now, that's it. And thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.